Title: The Love That Became a Business. They weren't chasing success. They didn't dream of luxury or fame. They never set out to be entrepreneurs. All they wanted was to care for their parents, the ones who had spent a lifetime caring for them, the ones who had once been strong, and now needed help just to walk. It was in that quiet act of love, that selfless choice, that something truly extraordinary began to grow. They had no idea, but by opening their hearts, they were also opening the door to a whole new chapter. A simple idea, born from devotion to their family, would become something so much greater. What started as a struggle turned into purpose. What felt like a burden became a calling. This is the story of a couple who came together through pain, but blossomed in hope. Get ready, because the journey you're about to see has everything your heart needs to feel. Lucas and Mariana were never flashy. Married for nearly 10 years, they lived a simple, quiet life, filled with love, teamwork, and deep connection. They shared everything: the bills, the dreams, the fears, and most of all, the care for their aging parents. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind where the silence says more than words. When the phone rang, and their world flipped upside down, Lucas's father had taken a fall, and Mariana's mother, already fragile, had started forgetting where she kept things. It was no longer just about Sunday visits. It was time to step in, to take full responsibility. They sat together on the living room couch, looked into each other's eyes, and without saying much, they both knew this couldn't wait anymore. Time was passing, and their parents, who once stood tall, now needed them more than ever. Should we bring them to live with us? Mariana asked softly, but with certainty. Of course, Lucas replied, eyes filled with tears. They cared for us our whole lives. Now it's our turn. They knew it wouldn't be easy. The house was small, the bills were tight, and their jobs offered zero flexibility. Lucas worked as a rideshare driver, putting in endless hours just to make ends meet. Mariana was a school assistant, out the door at sunrise, exhausted by sunset. But the decision was made. They were going to find a way. They didn't know how, but they knew why. And that's where the most beautiful part of this story begins. Not with magic, not with luck, but with a couple who chose not to abandon. The ones who loved them first. The first days of living with their parents were intense. The house had new sounds, new medicines, new routines, and a new kind of exhaustion. Lucas split his time between driving for the app and taking his dad to medical appointments. Mariana couldn't remember the last time she slept 8 full hours. Her mom kept waking up at 3 a.m., thinking it was still 1984. And the bills, they hit like waves in a storm. Water, electricity, medicine, special food, physical therapy. Their small income, which was already stretched, began to vanish like smoke. And then the worst happened. Lucas lost his car. He was deep in financing, and the payments caught up. No car, no app. No app, no income. That night, at 2:43 in the morning, Lucas stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Did we make a huge mistake?" Mariana, barely awake, replied with a kind of faith only true love knows. "You did the right thing, love. We just need to find another way." And then she had an idea. Small, almost shy, but powerful. She started baking cakes. Simple ones. Orange cornbread carrot with chocolate glaze. She posted in the neighborhood group. Homemade cakes made with love, delivered to your door. That first weekend, they sold 4 cakes. The next week, 12. By the following month, Lucas was delivering them on a bike, with a cooler strapped to the back. What began with eggs and sugar turned into hope. And hope has a flavor no kind of hunger can erase. The kitchen turned into a battlefield. But instead of weapons, there was flour in the air, aluminum trays everywhere, and a sweet smell floating down the sidewalk. Mariana woke up at 5 a.m. every morning. No time for coffee. Just open her eyes, turn on the oven, start the radio on low, and let the magic begin. Lucas, who couldn't crack an egg without a mess, became her baking assistant. He learned how to sift flour patiently. He beat egg whites by hand when the mixer burned out, and he made deliveries on an old bike. The one with flat tires and a bent handlebar, forgotten in the backyard. That bike became his new car, and every pedal forward was a reminder. Giving up was not an option. Time for Dona Celia's delivery. Don't forget, Dona Ivone wants the syrup on the side. This one's extra special. It's for a birthday. The neighborhood began to notice. The cakes weren't just delicious. They came wrapped in care you couldn't buy at any supermarket. One day, a woman cried. She said the corn cake tasted just like the one her mom used to make. And Mariana cried with her, because in that moment she understood. They weren't just selling cakes. They were selling memories, warmth, a taste of home. What began as a desperate way to pay the bills had become a real business. Small, yes, but with a big soul. And through it all, they never stopped caring for their parents. Lucas bathed his father with the gentlest hands. He sang old songs to spark a rare smile. Mariana read to her mother at night, like two little girls sharing a bedtime secret. Was it hard? Absolutely. But it was also beautiful. And little by little, they started to dream again. Not of riches or vacations, but of something far more precious. Freedom, and time with the ones they love. It was an ordinary Friday. Cloudy skies, the smell of rain in the air. Mariana had her hands deep in carrot cake batter when her phone rang. She wiped her hands on her apron and answered, distracted. A fast, upbeat voice on the other end. Hi, this is Renata from Soli Brisa Events. We saw your cakes in a post by influencer Carol Vieira. Do you take custom orders? Mariana, unsure what was going on, replied timidly. Yes, that's me. Perfect. We're hosting a brunch for 50 people this Sunday, and we want every cake on the table to have your special touch. Sound good? Silence. Did she hear that right? 50 people? All the cakes? By Sunday? Of course. Mariana replied with a nervous smile, without even blinking. She hung up and just stared into space. Lucas walked into the kitchen and asked, Did something happen? It happened. We just got the biggest order of our lives. And that's when the chaos began. They had 2 days, just 2, to bake dozens of cakes, different flavors, toppings, decorations, packaging. Lucas, we only have 3 cake pans. I'll run to the mall and grab more. I'll fill the gas tank while I'm at it. What about ingredients? Sugar, eggs, condensed milk. Leave that to me. I'll probably go to the supermarket 5 times today. The weekend turned into a marathon. While their parents rested in the bedroom, the entire house transformed into a cake-making headquarters. Low music played in the background. The oven ran nonstop. Sweet smells floated through every room. And somehow, there was an energy in the air that even exhaustion couldn't beat. Each cake had a name. This one is Grandma Lucy's tradition. This one's called the Orange Smile. This one, let's call it Dream of Rain. It smells like my childhood on cloudy days. Lucas gave the cakes such loving nicknames that Mariana started writing them down. Who knows, she said. Maybe someday we'll launch a line with these silly names. Sunday came. They woke up at 4 a.m., packaged each cake with ribbons, handwritten tags, and little paper hearts. Lucas, with the same old refurbished bike, delivered everything to the event hall. He made 2-3 trips. Along the way, people stopped and stared. It was strange and beautiful. A man pedaling with a bike full of cakes, as if carrying the trophies of life. At the event, the organizer gasped. This is incredible. Handmade. This is art. She took pictures. She filmed everything. She posted it. And she tagged Mariana's Instagram profile, which had been secretly created by her niece days earlier. The video went viral. Overnight, their 17 followers jumped to 4,000. Messages started pouring in. People wanted the Dream of Rain, the Orange Smile, Grandma Lucy's tradition. And that's when it hit them. They were building something bigger than they ever imagined. But the most beautiful part wasn't the likes or the sales. It was seeing their parents watching from the porch, eyes full of pride. Mariana's mother said, My daughter's an artist now. And Lucas's father, wiping away a hidden tear, replied, I always knew that boy would be all right. This was only the beginning, and they were finally ready for more. After that magical Sunday, when their cakes stole the spotlight at the event, Mariana and Lucas's lives became a mix of baking, Instagram messages, and orders. Lots of orders. Mariana's phone buzzed constantly. Messages poured in from everywhere. Do you make cake in a jar? Do you have gluten-free options? Can I order one for my mom's birthday? That Dream of Rain. Can I just try a slice? She responded to every single one, with emojis, warmth, and gratitude, as if each message came from their very first customer. Lucas, meanwhile, became the logistics master. He dug up an old spiral notebook from college, and with a blue pen, drew out a system. Name, address, flavor, delivery, payment method. If NASA sees this notebook, they'll hire us for the next Mars mission. He joked, Mariana laughed, her apron covered in flour, chocolate smudged on her cheek. Their routine was changing. They barely slept. They drank coffee standing up. The oven's beat became the soundtrack of their lives. The house, once quiet, now echoed with laughter, and always smelled like vanilla and dreams. But something still bugged them. They were doing everything themselves. No custom packaging, no proper storage space. And the kitchen, already too small for such a big dream. That's when Lucas had an idea. Mari, what if we finally invested in something big? Like an industrial freezer? Or a stove with more burners? Mariana paused. She looked around and whispered, "We haven't even made a profit yet. And my parents' meds are due this month." Lucas replied gently, "What if we ask the internet for help? Like a crowdfunding campaign. But we give something in return. Whoever helps gets the first slice from our new kitchen." She hesitated. They never liked asking for anything. But this time, it wasn't just about them. It was about love, family, care, and maybe a little sugar too. So they made a video. They recorded it with a phone propped on a glass jar, the soft morning light glowing through the window. Mariana wore her apron and a shy smile. She looked into the camera and said, "Hi guys, I'm Mari, and this is Lucas. We're trying to grow the dream that started in our tiny kitchen, between a cup of coffee and a spoonful of love. If you'd like to be part of this journey, help us take the next step." They posted it with their hearts racing, and waited. The next day, the magic happened. Comments began rolling in. "You remind me of my grandparents who made sweets. I'm in. I'll donate, but I want a slice of the orange smile. I don't even like sweets, but this video made me cry. I'm helping." In less than 48 hours, the campaign reached its goal. And more than that, it went 30% over. They cried. Literally. Mariana hugged Lucas and said, "They believe in us, Lou. They really do." With the money, they bought a new stove, a few aluminum cake pans, embroidered aprons that said Casa dos Bolos, and a cabinet just for ingredients. And for the first time, they felt like they were building something with roots. But the most beautiful part was still to come. Lucas stopped by a small pet shop and bought a picture frame. At home, he printed their very first photo together, covered in flour, smiling, and holding their first cake. He placed it on the kitchen counter, and with a pen, wrote on the glass, "Here, a dream was born." With the new stove clicking again, cake pans gleaming, and the kitchen finally arranged just the way they had dreamed, Mariana and Lucas felt something new that morning. Confidence. It was as if all the sacrifice, all the care for their parents, all the sleepless nights, were finally starting to bloom. But like every story of resilience, life had one more test in store. On a gray Saturday, with soft rain tapping the window, Lucas opened an email on the Casa dos Bolos account, which now had a charming logo gifted by an artist follower. And then his eyes went wide. "Hi, I saw your video and would love to order 200 custom cupcakes for a corporate event. Is that possible?" He froze. "Read it again." "Yes, 200 cupcakes." Mariana, stirring a bowl of carrot cake batter, noticed his silence. "What's that face, love? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I think I did, but its name is Prophet." She rushed over, read the email, and they looked at each other, like two kids at the gate of a roller coaster. "Should we accept?" "Of course we should. But how?" "We'll figure it out. We always do." With a deep breath, they replied to the email like professionals, the kind who panic after closing the deal. And so began the adventure of their first big corporate order. It was for a tech company that wanted cupcakes with custom labels like, "You're sweet on the team," and "Thanks for sweetening our days." Mariana spent 2 full days testing batters, fillings, toppings. Lucas turned into a label designer and a full-time ingredient delivery guy, bouncing between grocery stores, office supply shops, and a tiny corner store that sold sprinkles by the kilo. The kitchen turned into a night shift. They assembled cupcakes like a production line, singing old songs, sipping coffee, and sneaking in standing naps. Bit by bit, the counter filled with cupcakes, each one with a hand-glued label, a bow of ribbon, and a final drop of love on top. On delivery day, they loaded everything into the trunk of their brother-in-law's car, which had now become the official carrier. Arriving at the sleek office building, they walked past a mirrored lobby, full of people in suits. Lucas whispered, "Did you bring that leftover chocolate glaze from the stove?" "Of course not. We're delivering cakes, not performing magic tricks." They laughed. They delivered everything with a smile. A week later, they got a message from the event manager. Everyone loved them. You were the highlight of the meeting. We're considering a monthly contract. That's when Mariana allowed herself to dream bigger. For the first time, as they cleaned the kitchen that night, she turned to Lucas and asked, "Have you ever thought, maybe we could really live off this someday?" Lucas wiped his hands, wrapped his arm around her, and said, "If I get to live it with you, love, I'm all in. Flower in your hair and everything." They hugged in the middle of the kitchen, under the flickering yellow light, as if the universe itself was winking at them, saying, "You're on the right track." After that giant order, Mariana and Lucas began looking at each other differently. It was like someone had pressed a button. Something had shifted. What used to be a kitchen, a refuge, a kind of therapy in the middle of the chaos, now felt like something more. A doorway to something bigger. The days that followed were a whirlwind of joy and exhaustion. The messages kept coming. "Do you make gluten-free cookies? Can I order 30 cake jars? My mom's turning 80. She loves cornbread cake. Do you do that? I saw you in the crowdfunding video. So beautiful. I'm rooting for you." It wasn't just about buying cake anymore. People were buying something deeper. A story, a feeling, something real. And then one Wednesday afternoon, in the middle of the kitchen, dish towel on her shoulder, flour even on her eyebrow, Mariana stopped and said, "Lucas, what if we registered the name?" He froze, spoon still in his hand. "Register? You mean make it official?" "Yeah, a micro business. With a name, a tax ID, invoices, the whole deal." Lucas smirked. "Wow, that sounds like business talk. Well, aren't we one?" And just like that, between batches of batter and chocolate glaze, they made it official. They filed paperwork, opened a business account, asked their Instagram followers for help naming it. And that's how it was born. Sweetness in a Pot. The name came from a follower who commented, "What you make isn't just cake. It's spoonfuls of love. It's sweetness in a pot." It fit like a glove. Mariana posted under the new brand for the first time. And within the hour, 200 likes, dozens of comments, and a brand new order. 50 jars for a school celebration. The kitchen began to feel small. The shelves overflowed. The oven groaned. The fridge cried for help. But their hearts? Those only grew. The most beautiful part? Watching their parents join the mission. Mariana's dad labeled jars with a ruler. Engineer precision in every sticker. Lucas's mom made fresh coffee and gave recipe advice like she ran a Parisian bakery. It became a family business, built on care, run with purpose. With each new order, they added a handwritten note inside the bag. "Thank you for sweetening our lives with your support. With love, Mari and Lou." Simple, but unforgettable. That night, exhausted, lying on the couch with a show playing in the background, and a pile of cake jars to clean in the sink, Mariana leaned her head on Lucas's shoulder and whispered, "Did you ever think all of this started because we just wanted to take care of our parents?" Lucas smiled with his eyes still closed. "And look at us now. We're taking care of so many people, one little jar at a time." And in that quiet moment, without big announcements, another truth was born. When love becomes your mission, it finds paths that reason could never imagine. Sometimes life feels like the script of an indie film, the kind that starts small, but suddenly unfolds into something deeper than you ever imagined. That's how it was with Mariana and Lucas. The days rolled by, the orders kept growing, and sweetness in a pot was no longer just a cute idea. It was becoming a small empire of love and sugar, built one spoonful of hope at a time. But with growth came chaos. The kitchen looked like a war zone. Jars stacked on top of the fridge, packages piled in the hallway, labels stuck to Mariana's forehead. Accidentally, well, maybe half accidentally. They laughed through it, but they were tired, really tired. One dawn, sweaty and breathless, Mariana looked around the kitchen and said, "We need a bigger kitchen." Lucas scanned the room and sighed, "Or our own jar factory." So that weekend, they visited a rental space. It was small, plain white tiles, smelled like fresh paint, basically an empty living room. But to them, it looked like NASA headquarters. They were scared, terrified even, opening a real workspace, leaving the comfort of home, paying rent. It was a huge step, but it was also the right step. They were growing, and the love that started it all no longer fit inside their tiny kitchen walls. That evening, they sat on the floor of the empty space. Mariana opened a pot of chocolate fudge and held out 2 spoons. If this flops, at least it tastes like chocolate. Lucas took the spoon and smiled. And if it works out, may we never forget how we started. Caring for our parents. With faith. With love. And not a single penny in our pockets. There, in that echoing room, they signed the lease. Yes, the fear was still there. But the courage? It was louder. And once again, the improbable became possible. They didn't have investors. They never took business courses. They didn't even know what inventory management meant. But they had each other. And by now, that was worth more than any MBA. The new kitchen began to take shape. Tiles with cute sayings. Little plants in the window. An old table in the corner with flower stains. Stains that would soon become part of their daily rhythm. And when they turned the oven on for the first time, Mariana whispered, "This is just the beginning, Lucas." He held her hand and replied, "And what a beautiful beginning, Mari." And so, through fear and sweetness, they moved forward, turning jars into dreams, recipes into memories, and love into a business. Because when the heart is your main ingredient, everything tastes like hope. The new kitchen was starting to look like them. You know, that kind of place. No fancy furniture, but full of meaning? That was it. The smell of chocolate in the air. Jars stacked in the corner. Hand-drawn labels with Mariana's doodles. Every corner had a soul. But as soon as they shared the news online, the comments started rolling in. And not all of them were sweet. Wait, did they really give up everything to make candy? Give it a month. Just another small business that'll close. Do they really think they can live off that? Those words stung. Mariana, always more sensitive, read every comment like it was a dagger. Lucas tried to brush it off. Just envy, he said. Success makes people uncomfortable. But it hit him too. Hard. One night, after a delivery run, they sat in the car in silence. The radio was playing soft. City noise whispered in the background. Then Mariana broke the silence. What if they're right? Lucas didn't answer right away. He stared ahead, took a deep breath, and said, "Remember your dad in the hospital? Holding our hands, saying we had to keep taking care of each other, no matter what." She nodded, her eyes misty. "Remember how your mom, even with Alzheimer's, smiles every time she sees the jar with her drawing on the label? That's not just sugar. That's love in the form of memory. We're not just making candy, Mari. We're building something that came from pain, but turned into light. And no one on the internet knows our journey." She smiled. That soft, quiet smile that says, "I needed to hear that." That night, they made a new rule. Never again let outside noise drown out the voice within. The next day, they posted a picture. The two of them standing in their kitchen, holding a candy jar. The caption read, "It may look like just a jar, but it carries everything we have. Love, care, memory, courage. When you believe, you can't go wrong." And this time, the response was different. Beautiful comments started appearing. "My mom has Alzheimer's too. Thank you for sharing this. You inspired me to finally start my own thing. Don't ever stop. You too shine in a way that reaches far." And just like that, between the noise of critics and the warmth of believers, life moved on, with ups and downs as always. But now, with a purpose as clear as the glass jars lining their shelves, turning pain into sweetness, fear into action, and criticism into fuel. Because in the end, what truly matters isn't who doubts you, it's who believes with you. It was an ordinary Tuesday. Mariana was organizing the orders, excited about a new recipe, truffles filled with dulce de leche and chopped nuts. Lucas? His hands were covered in chocolate. He still hadn't quite mastered the technique, but he laughed the whole time, like someone playing chef with life. Then her phone buzzed. A new Instagram DM. "Hi, I bought one of your Brigadeiro jars at Donutcitas thrift store and absolutely loved it. Do you take larger orders?" Mariana, curious, sent a friendly voice message back, like she always did. She explained that yes, they did, and asked where the person was from. The reply came quickly. "I'm an event planner organizing a wedding for 300 people. I want a dessert table filled with sweets that tell a story. Do you do that?" They looked at each other like they had misheard. Lucas broke the silence. "Is this a prank?" Mariana laughed, but her heart was already racing. She knew. This was real. That evening, they got on a video call with the planner. And yes, it was all true. He had tasted one of their sweets from a friend. A jar bought at Donutcitas thrift store. And it wasn't just the flavor that won him over. It was the label. made by a couple who cares for their aging parents with love, and dreams of building a sweeter home for everyone. That was what touched him. "I don't want just candy on the wedding table," he said. "I want stories. I want soul. I want you." The request was bold. Over 1,200 treats, all with custom labels, delicate packaging, and their signature care. Mariana was speechless. Lucas pretended to stay calm, but inside, he was already doing mental math, testing flavor combos, calculating time, ingredients, packaging. They could do it, but first, they had to talk to their parents, because no matter how much life was taking off, care was still the foundation of it all. They would never leave behind what mattered most. They sat down together, explained the project with affection, and were honest about the long nights ahead. And then came the surprise. From home, Lucas's mom, the same one who rarely left the couch, held his hand and said, "Go, my son. We'll take care of each other here. Now it's your time to shine." And Mariana's father, his voice soft with age, added, "We took care of us with love. Now take care of this dream, with that same tenderness." And there, in that quiet, simple moment, they realized something. Love given always finds its way back, sometimes in the shape of a sweet, sometimes in the form of a blessing, and sometimes in the form of permission. Life wasn't testing them anymore. It was opening the doors. And now, they were ready to walk through. Right after accepting the wedding order, Mariana and Lucas looked at each other, eyes wide with a mix of, "Oh my God, what now?" and "Let's make history." The kitchen that once handled simple little jars now had to become a mini dessert factory. First challenge? Equipment. They had 2 big pots, a moody 4-burner stove, and a fridge that made alien noises after midnight. But creativity? Top tier. They got to work, pulled an old table from the backyard, and set it in the middle of the kitchen for extra workspace. Used empty ice cream containers as molds, turned leftover Christmas ribbon into gift bows. And to top it all off, they glued on handmade labels, one by one, each with the message, "Made with love by those who believe that caring is the sweetest way to change the world." The nights got long. They cooked for hours, slept in 2-hour shifts, took turns between the stove, caring for their parents and packing boxes. Sometimes they fell asleep with spoons in their hands. Other times, they laughed so hard they forgot how tired they were. "Mariana, this brigadeiro is firmer than us during a supermarket sale." "Lucas, did you just put cinnamon in the beijinho? I thought it was coconut." Looked the same in the dark. The chaos was real. But the tiredness? It didn't stop them. It fueled them. Each finished sweet felt like a small victory. Each sealed jar a promise fulfilled. And the most beautiful part? Their parents joined in. Mariana's father, hands trembling with age, helped tie ribbon bows with so much care it made them tear up. Lucas's mom assembled boxes. Slowly, gently, with a smile that said everything. They weren't just watching. They were part of it, transforming that moment into something far bigger. A whole family, united by one sweet mission. And when the final batch was done, after weeks of effort, sweat, and chocolate in their hair, Mariana and Lucas looked at each other, eyes glassy. "We did it. We did it together." The clock read 4:17 a.m., and with their bodies drained but their hearts full, they toasted with warm milk. And one special brigadeiro. It wasn't just the end of a project. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Something built not with money or luxury, but with sweat, love, and a wild determination to make a difference. That morning, the kitchen became a piece of history. And their story, it became a dream, ready to take flight. The big day had finally arrived. No castle, no red carpet, no limousine. But who needed any of that, when there was love overflowing from every corner? Mariana and Lucas walked into the venue with glowing eyes. Not from glamour, but from pride. Pride in what they had overcome. Pride in being there, together. Pride in every single sweet on that table. Handmade with love, crafted with family, and filled with history. The venue was simple. Flowers from the neighbor's garden. Twinkle lights recycled from last Christmas. But the real sparkle was coming from them. As guests began to arrive and saw the dessert table, their jaws dropped. "Wow, look at this attention to detail. Mariana, did you actually make all this?" "Lucas, this candy is better than any upscale bakery." And with each compliment, they smiled awkwardly on the outside. But inside, they were dancing already. It was during this wedding that things began to explode. a godmother in a sky blue dress, owner of a skincare clinic, ordered 200 custom treats on the spot. A distant cousin, who rarely even showed up to family events, fell in love with the brownies and asked to resell them at his cafe. And the DJ? He paused the music for 5 full minutes, just to snap a picture with the candy table. Then he posted it to Instagram with the caption, "Simple wedding, extraordinary sweets. I volunteer as godfather of the next batch." And it didn't stop there. One of the quiet guests, a longtime friend of Lucas's mom, turned out to be the owner of a luxury event planning company. She listened to their story, heard about the sweets made at home, learned how they did it all while caring for their aging parents. She paused, took a deep breath, and said, "You have no idea what you've created. This brand has a soul. I want you at my next corporate event. But there's one condition. The business card has to include the phrase from your packaging. Made with love by those who believe that caring is the sweetest way to change the world." That is gold. And right there, between hugs, happy tears, offbeat dancing, and chocolate-covered brigadeiros, their business was truly born. Not as a side hustle, not as something small, but as a purpose, a way to show the world that love can be a company, that caregiving can become a mission, and that even a humble wedding can change the lives of 2 entire families. That night, Mariana and Lucas danced like they were standing on top of the world. And maybe they really were, on top of what truly matters. After the wedding, it felt like the world had finally begun to see them, truly see them. And it wasn't just because the sweets were delicious. It was something deeper, something that touched people in a quiet, unexpected way. Care, love, a story. The order book started filling faster than Mariana ever imagined. At first, it was pure celebration. "Babe, we've got 3 boxes to deliver on Wednesday." "Seriously? That's double last week." They were thrilled, but soon they realized the challenge had changed. The problem was no longer, how do we sell? It had become, how do we keep up? The home kitchen couldn't handle it anymore. The small mixer burned out from overuse. The fridge became an emotional game of Tetris, each dessert crammed in like puzzle pieces of hope. Then one evening, Lucas said, "Mari, what if we rented a bigger space?" She hesitated. "Lucas, we're barely covering bills. Do you really want to risk it?" It was a tough choice. Grow or stay safe. But the most beautiful push came from the quietest place. Lucas's mother, seated in her wheelchair, soft voice trembling, looked at them with teary eyes and said, "You took care of us with so much love. Now it's time to take care of this dream. It needs room to grow. Don't be afraid." It felt like a blessing. They found a small house for rent, just a few blocks away, and step by step, they made it theirs. They painted the walls together. Cheap paint, lots of laughter. Lucas tripped over the paint bucket twice. Mariana accidentally painted his nose. When they finally hung the sign outside, "Sweets with Care," they knew that place was more than just a workspace. It was the seed of everything they believed in. And as their business grew, they made a promise. No conveyor belts. Every customer will still feel like the only one. Every sweet will carry a piece of us. And so they continued, with more orders, more praise, some long, clear nights, but always a heart full of why it all began. They were growing, but they never stopped being. Mariana and Lucas, the couple who started it all, with love. It was just another cloudy Thursday morning. The coffee was fresh, the batch of cookies almost ready. Mariana checked her phone, like she did every day. Then, a sudden notification lit up the screen. "You've been tagged in a post." "Lucas, come look at this." She tapped the screen, confused. And then her hands started to tremble. A famous influencer, who had visited their store the day before, without saying who he was, had posted a video. He tried the sweets, chatted with Lucas's parents who were helping behind the counter, heard a bit of their story, and left quietly. But what he posted, a simple, heartfelt video, with a caption that read, "Today I met the most inspiring couple I've come across in a long time. They gave up everything to care for their parents, started from scratch, and now serve the most love-filled sweets I've ever tasted. People like this deserve to fly far." Within 2 hours, the video had 500,000 views. Comments exploded. People started sharing, tagging friends, sending love. "My God, what a beautiful story. I want to order for my next party. Where is this store? I need to visit." Lucas, mid-icing a cake, stopped and looked at Mariana, eyes wide. Is this really happening? The store phone rang nonstop. Messages flooded in. People placing orders. Journalists asking for interviews. Even local TV shows calling. But what touched them the most wasn't the fame. It was the messages from people who cried watching the video. People who were also caring for aging parents. People who had paused their dreams. People who thought it was too late to start over. Their store became a tourist destination. Not because of fancy decor or trendy lighting, but because of the story, what it represented, what it inspired. And through it all, they never forgot what mattered. No soulless mass production. No rushed service. They hired with care, trained with heart, and reminded everyone why they started. Mariana told every new team member, "We don't just sell sweets. We give people hope." And Lucas, from behind the counter, always added with a grin. And a generous amount of filling, too. The store grew. It became a franchise. But still, this was only the beginning. Because now, what they had created was no longer just theirs. It belonged to everyone who believed. That care can become a business. That love can be an investment. And that success, when it comes from the heart, transforms not only the lives of those who build it, but of everyone who walks through its doors. Months after the avalanche of change, the store was busier than ever. It was a Friday late afternoon. Lucas was washing his hands in the tiny sink at the back, when he heard a familiar sound, coming from the old record player he had fixed years ago with his father, his mother's favorite song, the one she used to hum, while baking carrot cake when he was a kid. He stopped, closed his eyes, took a slow, deep breath. Up front, Mariana was arranging souvenir boxes near the entrance. She smiled, as two elderly men walked in, hand in hand. New customers, but with that same light in their eyes she knew so well. The light of someone who's lived through heavy stories, and still believes in new beginnings. One of them looked around the shop, taking in every detail, and said gently, "You didn't just build a store. You've created a place where time feels like it embraces you." Mariana held back tears, because in that moment, she understood something that changed everything. They hadn't come this far just because of good recipes or a touching story. They had come this far because they stayed true to what they felt, because they never let love become a burden, because even in exhaustion, they remembered that it's always worth it to care. That night, after locking the store, Mariana and Lucas walked to the bench in the square, the one where they used to dream about what they would do with their lives. They sat side by side, fingers intertwined. "Do you think we were crazy to drop everything?" she asked, laughing softly. Lucas smiled. "I think we were crazy for not doing it sooner." They looked up. The stars were there, just like always. But now, they felt closer. Maybe because, when we live for what truly matters, even the sky draws near. And in the silence of that night, with their hearts light and hands clasped, they both knew it was all worth it. Every tear, every risk, every dream replanted. They hadn't just built a business. They had built a legacy. And the most beautiful part? That legacy began with one simple choice anyone can make. To love, to care, to believe, and to start again.